Greetings. Got someone from the Pacific Northwest. Let me know where you're streaming from. I'm in Southern California. Oh, someone said they were happy to see me at the powwow in San Francisco. Yeah, number of folks came up to me at the powwow. I was surprised. Oh, we got someone from Portland. I thought I saw Portugal. I got Portugal on the brain because I'm thinking about the Camino. Dallas, Santa Fe, New Mexico, welcome. Asheville, North Carolina, Northern North Carolina, St. Petersburg. Oh, we got a Comanche girl from Albuquerque, welcome. Nova Scotia, so we got a New Mexican here. We're talking about New Mexico today. Portland, South Carolina, welcome everybody. Arkansas. Today we're talking about supervillains versus superheroes, because that's the part of the story. That's the part of the story we're in. So I don't know if you caught it. I posted today. I did a Metatron, not the news today. I did one yesterday, and the topic for both is the defeat of the supervillains. So every day we're seeing like a little bit more in terms of repercussions, consequences with regard to the supervillains, the villains and the supervillains. There's a whole hierarchy of villains now, aren't there? I mean, we have the circus, which is like the supervillains, right? Especially Head Clown. Blondie, definitely a supervillain. Maybe I'll find out from you all who you think is a villain versus a supervillain. And I think right now they're going after the villains more than the supervillains, because that's how it is with criminal takedowns. They always go after the smaller fries, and then later they get the big fries, right? All right, who else do we have? Mobile, Alabama. New Mexico is awesome today. That's what we're talking. We're going to talk about. Oh, wrong one. New Mexico, Temescal Valley, California. Oh yeah, I agree that this one is a supervillain. Absolutely. Oh, this is a good point that Maggie makes. Do we even know who the supervillains are? Yeah. So remember my guides were talking about the global structure, and they said that there are these overlords, right? That's the name that they used. It kind of sounds like a cartoon, right? The overlords, and they said some of them are people we know, like the tech bros and the political leaders of certain realms. But then some of them are like these shadowy figures in the background who never put their name on anything. And so, yeah, there are a lot of, according to my guides, there are a lot of supervillains whose names we don't know. Yeah, I agree. This is another super villain. Teal Clown. Another person agrees with you, Juniper. Yeah, well, he used to be, he's not really been in the shadows that much. I mean, I think he is now, like he doesn't make as much, but he used to be public speaking all the time. He used to do a lot of public speaking. And I think later he's not, lately, oh, I'm talking funny today. He isn't doing as much public speaking. I think I'm tired from traveling. Grovetown, Georgia. Yeah, so we're talking about oh, someone's asking me to speak about Obama's ET. You know what? I don't know about that. So I can't speak on that, but now I'm intrigued. Someone else is in here is using so many code words. I don't know what you're talking about. Kyo2G. I don't know what you're talking about. See, sometimes we get caught up in the character names and the code names, and it gets confusing. Okay, so Lori says the astrologers are calling for the collapse this month in March. Yeah, I know there's some powerful things happening this month astrologically. I am not an astrologer. My mother was, so I don't pretend to be. Yeah, I would agree with this assessment by Hannah Wankier. This is definitely a supervillain. Isn't it fun though to talk about the villains and the supervillains? So yeah. So let's talk about what's going on recently. So if you didn't, I'm going to review some of the stuff that I already said in my post today, in case you didn't catch it. So we had some really exciting news today out of New Mexico. If you've been following it, a couple of days ago, they said, "Oh, we're going to start a commission to investigate the ranch of Zor." And then the very next day, the commission met and they decided to start a probe, an investigation. And then today they announced that they are going to be searching the hacienda specifically for bodies. So they're moving very quickly. They're not messing around. And I'm very impressed with that because we spent the last like year and a half dealing with a lot of political, flippity floppity, lots of talkity and not enough action behavior from our political leaders, right? And so it's nice to see some real action happening in our country, not just other countries. And so they seem to be moving kind of quickly. And if you don't know, the man who bought that ranch bought it anonymously inside of a shell company. And for the last year, people were trying to figure out who owned this hacienda because, of course, it used to belong to Epi. And there are allegations made by a number of survivors that not only were lots of crimes committed there against children, but also that there were some unaliving of children and that they were buried there. And so these allegations were made years ago, and there should have been an investigation years ago. But somebody had connections and they somehow kept squashing the investigation so that they never searched this place. And they searched all of Epi's other residences in New York, Palm Beach, but never this one. And it's this huge sprawling hacienda. I forget how many acres. So there's a lot of land, a lot of potential graves. Now, I did also hear a rumor that there were bulldozers that were there a few days ago. So maybe the current owner is trying to dig up and dispose of evidence. And yeah, I wanted to mention this. Thanks, I am Eola, for saying this. So I just heard from one of my followers today that there are memorials being held at the ranch February 28th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and another on March 8th. So if you're local or if you can get there, I recommend that you go. I would love to be there. I think it would be so nice to have like a lot of art, singing, and poetry, and naming the names of all of the victims and survivors. It would be really a nice thing, really a nice thing to do. Oh, it has its own town. Interesting. So that's really good news, right? Things are happening. Things are moving. They're actually investigating. And so one of the things I like to do, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure a lot of you know, but if you're new, I'm a psychic medium, a medical intuitive, and I'm a precog, so I can see into the future. I work with my guides, and my guides are always trying to give me information about the bigger picture, right? The spiritual significance of the political situation we find ourselves in. And the reason that they want me to always be talking about the bigger picture is because having that perspective can really help us manage the trauma, right? So one of the things I want to talk about tonight is, what we're all going through as a country, because we've never been through anything like this before. So I want to talk about that tonight, but also I want to talk about the bigger picture and why we should be hopeful. Um, I know a lot of us are really frustrated that some of these supervillains are still not facing consequences, right? We got one sitting in the White House. We got several in the White House, right? But we have all of these people who actually, there are so many credible accusations against so many survivors against these people, detailing all of these crimes they committed against children, and yet they're, not behind bars. It's very frustrating, right? And I think it can be easy to focus on that and to become kind of demoralized, like, oh, these rich people never face consequences. Nothing's ever going to happen to them. Nothing's ever going to change, right? And it's easy to kind of get caught up in that loop. But that's a super unhelpful mental loop to get caught up in. It doesn't serve any purpose, really. And so if you find yourself getting caught up in a loop like that, it can be helpful to kind of step back and look at things from a bigger perspective and say, well, okay, let's look at the whole picture. And if we look at the whole picture, then we will be encouraged, because although it's true that a lot of the worst villains in this story are still not facing consequences, we are starting to see consequences for the first time ever. So if you can just think back to a few months ago, we didn't even have the files. We didn't even have the the heavily redacted 2% that we have now, right? We had nothing. We spent a year, and really before that, years, other people spent years trying to get this information out. And so we finally got a law passed, and some of it came out. And as a result of what has come out, even though it's a tiny amount, and even though they've tried very seriously to protect the guilty parties with all of their black marker highlights, despite all their best efforts, there are consequences that are coming to some people, right? So we have today the prince, Andy, who was formerly a prince, was literally arrested. This is huge, right? That's not my dog. No, it's my neighbor who has these really loud dogs. Yeah, my dog, when I had my dog, he was extremely well behaved. He would never do that. He only barked when there was something important to bark at. So there are consequences happening now, and they're not minor, because, Andy getting arrested and getting criminally charged and having his property searched and his items seized, this is major, right? It's not just, oh, we're going to take away his title. Oh, we're going to make him move from this castle to the other castle. That was such a joke, right? Oh, he can't live in this castle. Then he's living in some other castle. It's like, okay, I really feel for you, Andy. But no, now he's actually in jail. They're actually going through his stuff. We also have, what's going on at the ranch. There's actually a criminal probe that's happening after years of nothing happening, right? Also, there's other, there's like the head of, I think it was Hyatt, the CEO, Hilton CEO, and then the woman that just stepped down today is from which one? We had Hilton, we had Hyatt. There's another one that just stepped down today, but now I can't remember her name. You probably have it in the comments already. Yeah, I already forgot. Anyway, there was another one. Goldman Sachs, the CEO of Goldman Sachs stepped down. And then someone said the ex-priest has already been released. Yeah, I'm sure he made bail. I mean, the guy's rich. So, but still, just because you make bail doesn't mean anything. That's a major thing. Yeah, his own brother, right? Charles got his own brother arrested. So let's look at the bigger picture. I want to remind you of two things that my guide said recently. they said, first of all, that they're going to try to throw a lot of blue hats under the bus, right? They're going to only go after blue hat people associated with the files. And so that's part of what's going on right now. So the Mendelsohn guy in the UK, Labour Party guy, this is like a progressive liberal party guy equivalent to our blue party. So they went after him, right? They're going after, people who are more liberal. And they're not going after the really serious people, like the one that has 1 million mentions of his name, right? The head clown, nothing's happening to him yet. Right. But remember the guide said, oh, they're going to try to make this like a blue hat liberal thing. Like, oh, it's just all about, which is so crazy, right? Because who is it that spent the last year doing everything they could to prevent the files from coming out? Red hats. Who is it that is currently still obstructing their release? Red hats. Who is it that's putting all these improper redactions? Red hats. But of course, it's not a red hat, blue hat thing, right? It's not at all. It's not a political party thing. It's a kinder criminal thing, right? Some people are kinder criminals. They like to commit crimes against children and women, and it has nothing to do with political affiliation. But they're trying to do that, right? So we just got to remember that's part of the agenda. So when we see certain people being thrown under the bus first, like so for example, Gates had a repercussion today where he was supposed to be a keynote at some really big AI summit, and his keynote was withdrawn. He's a liberal, right? So just notice that they're trying to manage it, right? They're trying to manage it. Now, another thing that my guide said is that they're trying to manage the situation by sacrificing certain key players to keep other people safe. And so if you see Andy getting sacrificed, that's very intentional. That's very intentional. Mendelsohn, very intentional. Who they're going after because they have to give the people something. So we have some sense of satisfaction, like someone's punished, right? But what they think is that they're going to be able to control which people are exposed and which people are not. That's their plan. And so we got to keep that in mind when we get frustrated, like, oh, how come, they're going after people over there in the UK and France and Turkey and Lithuania, and all of these countries are going after people on the list. And what about our people? Well, this has to do with the power structure. And, they're protecting certain people, not because those people are, golden or anything, but because they're more central to the power structure. And so the main concern of the overlords is that we, the people, do not come to understand the true nature of the power structure. That's their priority, right? Their priority isn't to protect the whole bad traffic ring. I mean, word is out. We all know now. So that cat's out of the bag. They can't do anything about that. But what they can do is make sure that we don't come to understand how the bad traffic is associated with election interference, associated with the rigging of certain jousts in different realms, and how it's related to certain countries like Israel and Russia, right? And how the economies of different countries are all connected to the bad traffic and the rigging and the tech bros and the corporations, right? That's the part they don't want us to know. The bigger picture, right? The global structure. And so we are going to see certain people facing consequences and other people who are not. But what I want to remind you of too is that this is also the way syndicates are brought down. So whenever there are law enforcement going after a crime syndicate, like a whole structure, not just an individual thug, but a structure, what they do is they go after certain kind of low-hanging fruit. They go after people that are big enough that that arresting them will have an impact, but they don't usually go after the kingpin first, right? They go after someone lower, and then from that they get that person to turn evidence, and then they get someone above them and someone above them, right? Another thing they do is Oh yeah, someone gifted a membership. Thank you for gifting a membership. I am Eloha, and looks like someone thanked them for the membership. So thanks a lot. So there's two things going on, right? They're going to slowly go after people that are easier to go after in order to get the higher level people, right? Um, and then also, the power brokers are trying to strategically only sacrifice certain people, right? Um, so we are going to see this effect where certain people face consequences first. But don't jump to bad conclusions. Don't say, oh, the big guys are never going to go down. Because I think that this thing has an energy that can't be stopped. And that's because the majority of people are aware of this and concerned about it. So that's why I talked about some of the stats in my videos about how in Europe they did a poll and the majority of the people polled want the law enforcement to go after tech bros. That's one poll that I thought was interesting because the tech bros are also in the files. There's a huge amount of momentum in Europe for them to go after anybody who was listed anywhere in the files. That's how they're doing it over there. They're not saying, oh, we're going to go after this particular person because they were mentioned 500 times. No, they're saying anyone and everyone who's in the files, we are investigating you now. You are now going to be investigated, right? And in the U.S., because we're a little more corrupt over here, we're just asking people, high placed people, to resign. Like, get your face out of the public eye. You're making our company look bad. We don't like having a PDF running our company, and everyone knows it. We like our PDFs to be quiet. Keep their kinder crimes, in the shadows. So yeah, so let's talk about this. Oh wait, I'm going to talk about that first. People were giving some news. Yeah, so the ex offices were raided. Yes, he's being accused. Starboy is being accused of a number of things in France, and they raided his office and took a lot of evidence away. And so Steve Myers is saying they probably have proof about him meddling in our joust, right? If they're already saying he interfered in their joust. I think they probably will eventually have that. And that's what we have to pay attention to, is the way also criminal cases work. So like they first arrested, is it Mendelsohn for, what was it? Turning over state secret. I forget. I'm getting all these cases mixed up. I think it was the former prince who was accused of turning over state secrets. But I think Mendelsohn was accused of like financial fraud or financial crimes. And then the prince was being accused of turning over state secrets because that was revealed in the files. And then when it comes to Starboy, he was accused of creating corn flavored graphics with his Grok AI, superimposing people's faces onto naked images of girls and women. And so, the crimes that are being, and it sounds like they also have accused him of interference. So it may look initially like people are being accused of smaller crimes or crimes that don't seem right on the money, right? It's like, why aren't they arresting them for SA or for kinder crimes, right? Isn't that what they should be charging them with? Well, sometimes the way these things work is they get you for what they can get you, right? Tax evasion, parking tickets, like whatever. And then once they get you behind the clinker, they go and search your property and they find evidence of other crimes. And so I think that's what's going on with all these characters, because with Andy, who used to be a prince, they searched his residence after they arrested him. Same with Starboy. They raided. Raid means there's like a search with no notice, right? So he didn't have time to hide stuff. They just showed up, middle of the night or whatever, and were like, knock, knock, we're here. Give us everything. So they did that. And I think they did it to Mendelssohn too. I think they, am I saying his name right? I think I'm confusing him with a scientist, Mendelssohn. Does he have the same name as the scientist, Mendelssohn? The diplomat. So they're doing that with all of them. They're going to go after them for what they can, and then they're going to investigate. And so one of the things that they're doing now is they're getting access to the unredacted files. And some people say they have their own copies. I'm not sure where they're getting their copies. But that reminds me of other news I heard today, which was really exciting. And this is just a rumor, so I don't know if this is really a vetted story. That's, of course, I always remind people I'm not a journalist, right? I'm a storyteller. So, I look at lots of different news sources, and sometimes I just listen to rumors too and just spread them because we don't really have mainstream media anymore. So we have to kind of try to suss things out. So, but I always do say that I don't just, if I'm telling you something that's not vetted, I tell you that. I don't just act like this is a, verified fact. I never do that. That's why I'm telling you. I did hear somebody was talking about it in some posts I saw today that there's a rumor that Iran might have their own epi files, and that they might be using those files to have leverage in these talks that they're having with the circus about whether or not there's going to be war in Iran. Now, when I hear rumors like that, one of the things I do is I kind of tune in psychically and see if it feels legit. And then also I'll compare it to other news stories I've seen to see, is there any support out there for this? And one thing that I feel like kind of supports this as a possibility is the fact that they haven't started, right? He's been, circus clown number one has been talking a lot of talk, and he wants to start a war, right? He's been wanting to ever since the files got released, because it's a way to distract our attention from them. And so we know he wants to start that, but he hasn't been able to, right? There's been a lot of talk and back and forth and right? So that kind of makes me feel like maybe there's something to that story. Now, the other reason I think there might be something to it is that my guides did tell me, yeah, I agree. I always listen to Aaron Parnas. He's a great news source. I also go to Ground News, which is this like online news magazine that kind of synthesizes and brings together articles from all over, and kind of sources a bunch of different news sources into one headline, which is great. So it's a good way to get stuff that's been vetted. And I also go to Substack, where there are a lot of alternative journalists. All right, so this Steve is saying Scotland Yard has the absentee files. I don't know what the absentee files are, but I like the sound of anyone having any files, actually. So I just want to remind you that, remember my guide said a while ago that the files were going to be released, but they were going to come from all over the place, right? It wasn't necessarily going to be from our DOJ, but that they were going to come out because there are copies of parts of them distributed throughout the world. And I don't know who all has how much, but there are a whole lot of people in countries who have some of them. So I've been hearing rumors that France and UK are releasing files. I haven't seen any news verifying that. So if anyone has anything, put it in the comments. This is an interesting dichotomy. So you think those are the only options? He's going to squeal or they're going to unalive him. Whew. I haven't gotten anything about that. I do feel like he's going to he's going to probably reveal stuff. But here's the thing. There are a lot of people behind the scenes trying to control who gets got, right? Who faces consequences and who doesn't. Um, but but I do think they're not going to be able to control it, because I do think that a lot of these people who are facing consequences are going to cooperate, because no honor among thieves, right? It's not like these people are friends, right? They're just fellow criminals, right? They're just people who share a particularly disgusting proclivity, and they liked getting together and partaking in that proclivity together, or they liked talking about it, or providing services adjacent to it, right? There's a whole lot of like co-conspirators and collaborators involved, and they're not necessarily friends or have any loyalty to certain people. In this type of a syndicate, people aren't loyal because they care. People are loyal because the threat of not being loyal, right? There's either a threat of violence, or there's a threat of financial ruin, or there's a reward for being loyal, right? A great financial benefit or status benefit, right? So we're now finding out that a whole lot of people in the files are now in the regime, right? So they were all rewarded with positions, right? They kept the secrets, and now they got rewarded with these high status positions and money, right? So they're also all making all this money on the giant grift that is the head clown, right? He's constantly thieving billions of dollars, and allegedly, and everyone's benefiting. Everyone in the circus is benefiting financially. But here's the thing: you can't keep something a secret when there's like 10 people out there that know your secret, right? Once 10 people know your secret, whatever that secret is, it's never going to be a secret again, right? It's those 10 people are going to tell 10 people. That's the part of the story we're at now. There are now all of these people out there who are questioning whether or not it's in their best interest to keep the secret, right? And those people who are being arrested, or who are losing their jobs or their status, their reputation, they're really thinking twice about keeping the secret, because it's no longer benefiting them and it's now hurting them, right? Mendelssohn's a composer. Okay. I thought it was a scientist. Random. Welcome everyone for being here. Thank you for those people who are buying me a coffee. There's a QR code up at the top somewhere. And thank you to people who are my members, my Patreon members. Thank you for the gifts. And just thank you for showing up and being a part of this community. We're in this together. So I did want to talk about what we're going through. I like to stop every once in a while and see I hope he starts singing too. Okay, so somebody said France, Iran, Scotland, and UK all have copies. Is that what you're saying? And of course, we know that Russia and Israel do. I am so happy. Here's a question about the big union speech. I'm so excited about the fact that blue hat lawmakers are boycotting the speech. It's about time, right? How long have we been waiting for them to grow a backbone, right? Because what they've been doing is following all the rules, acting like we live in a law-abiding land, following tradition and decorum, and yet the circus has not been doing any of that. And so it's put them at a great disadvantage. So it's like if you go to play a game, right? You're going to go play sports with somebody, and the other team decides, we're just going to cheat the whole time. We're not going to follow the rules. We're going to be violent. We're going to whatever. We're going to throw oil on the field. We're going to tackle people even though we're playing baseball, whatever, right? Like if they just decide to make up their own rules and start behaving all crazy, and you insist, your team insists, we're going to keep following the rules. We don't believe in violence. We don't believe in tackling people. You know, three outs, three strikes. I mean, we're trying to follow the rules. And the other team is like, what rules? You can't win a game like that. You really can't even play it like that. And so I'm really excited about the fact that the Blue Hats are talking about boycotting the speech and having an alternative event, which is like it's like a really funny head nod to Bad Bunny, right? Yeah. Juniper Light, time for new referees. Yeah, the problem is we don't even have any, right? Yeah, we do need an opera. Oh, where did it go? The opera comment. Yeah, yeah, let's talk about Virginia. She was the first one to talk about Andy, and no one believed her, and they called her a liar, and they dragged her through the mud. And they even said the photo she had of herself with him when she was 16 was a fake. And she went through so much, ultimately died by suicide. And finally, now there's actual consequence for him. And so, the files ended up vindicating her. The files ended up proving that she was right all along, right? And that's what the files, we shouldn't need the files. We have the survivors, but live in a patriarchy. No one believes women. When women are essayed by men, they're not believed. And so there always has to be additional evidence. Even though we have, 1,000 women, right? 1,000 women who have accused these men, still not enough. So now we have this documentary evidence, right? Emails and audio and video and all this stuff is meant to kind of provide additional evidence. And so, of course, the additional evidence is vindicating the survivors. Here's another bit of good news. Anderson Cooper refused to sign the 60 Minutes contract with CBS. I forgot to put the comments on stage. Yes, Virginia is helping from the other side. Someone's talking about Bad Bunny. Let's have Bad Bunny pay again. Phoenix, Arizona in the house. Oh, yeah. I also mentioned this in my post about Zuck. They're being sued. And they're under a lot of pressure by the press because of the EpiPen. And this is really nice to see. We have to see this. When the supervillains start looking fearful, or they start hiding out or ducking behind or avoiding questions from the press, this is a really good sign, right? This is a really good sign that the superheroes are winning, right? And who are the superheroes? We are the superheroes. The people who will not stop talking about this, the people who've been resisting and persisting for the last 15, 16 months, right? And then we have a little bit of help, right? We've got Ro Khanna, we've got Massey, we've got Garcia, we've got AOC, we've got Crockett, right there. They're all Bernie Sanders. They're all doing their part too. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. I shouldn't have said that. So I did. I just said the name of a place that I shouldn't have said, the land of milk and honey. I try to use my character names, but every once in a while, when I'm on a live, I don't do it in my post, but when I'm alive, I get too comfortable. Thank you, Jennifer McAlchemy. Shining in from Clearwater. I think that's Clearwater, Florida. Yes, let's talk about this. This comment, Hope Suzanne. I've been thinking about this lately. I've been thinking about how I wanted to talk about what we're going through as a nation. So what we're going through, each of us individually, because of what we're going through as a nation. What we are going through is something that we have never been through before. And I think we need to stop and just acknowledge that and maybe reflect on that, because it really is a miracle that we're able to get through each day, that we're able to go to work, take care of the kids, take care of our health, whatever it is you have to do on a day-to-day basis. Because we're living through an apocalypse, right? We're living through the downfall of our republic. We're living through the exposure of the most horrific crimes at the highest level that we've ever seen, right? We all know that these crimes exist, but we've never seen before evidence of such a huge global structure of bad traffic that is connected to all of these very, very powerful people. We've never seen proof of that before, right? There have been suspicions, there have been rumors, there have been accusations, there have been allegations, there have been theories. But that's not the same as every day reading through more documents that provide more irrefutable proof of just the complexity and the size of this crime. So we're dealing with, also for the first time, really dealing with the reality that we no longer get to choose our leaders, right? We all chose one way. Most of us chose one way, and it didn't matter. And so that's a shock, right? We're living through no longer having a free press like we used to be able to count on the nightly news or whatever to get some facts. And now they're so heavily censored and corrupted by the circus that we have to really search for news. And then we have to constantly question it because we just don't have the same type of very heavily vetted professional news sources that we used to have. We don't have freedom of speech anymore. We have really heavy censorship on all of our platforms. We have people being targeted just for their beliefs, either losing their jobs or having their, or in some cases, having their houses kapoomed, right? Like we've had that judge who had her whole house kapowed. We had those representatives who were unalive because of their views. So we're dealing with that reality. And I don't want to really go on and on about this. I just wanted to give some examples just because we need to stop and reflect on how much we're handling. And we need to kind of stop and pat ourselves on the back that we're surviving this, that we're persisting, that we're doing what we have to do, and that we're not just sitting back and letting it happen, right? We're doing what we can to push back. We have to remember that we've never done this before. I've been an activist my whole life. I've never done anything like this. 40 years of activism, never anything like this. And none of us have been through anything like this. And we don't even know how to do it, right? Like that's the other thing is we have movements, right? We have all kinds of movements in different communities that have fought against different forms of oppression, racism, sexism, homophobia, classism, right? Anti-war. We have all these different strategies that we've developed over the years for how to organize against different types of oppressions. We have never organized against anything like this. We don't even have any traditions to fall back on, right? We can't say, well, our ancestors, no, our ancestors did not deal with this, right? So we're having to come up with new strategies every day. And there's new stuff coming at us every day. No, now it's a war over here. And now it's the loss of this right. And now they're attacking this group. And now they're going after, now they're kidnapping these people, right? Now they're putting journalists in jail, right? Like it's something new every day. So we're overwhelmed. And yet we have to constantly be trying to figure out, okay, how do we push back on this? How do we persist against this? How do we come together as community? How do we keep our hope up? How do we, continue to fight the good fight, even though we're exhausted? This is what we have to do every day. And we got to give ourselves a little grace, recently I took a few days off and I went out of town to a powwow and to a bunch of community events. And it was so nourishing for my soul to be in a space with community where we were celebrating who we are, and all of our energy wasn't focused on how do we fight the circus. It was a nice break. And we have to do that on a regular basis. We have to find ways to be in community, to nourish our souls, to give ourselves a sense of peace, to find some joy, some rest, and remind ourselves what we're fighting for. Like I was at this Two-Spirit powwow and a number of other Two-Spirit events all weekend. And, the term Two-Spirit is a Native American term. It refers to a traditional role that was found and still is found in many, many tribes across Turtle Island. And the Two-Spirit role is something that people roughly translate to, the term they try to roughly translate to gay, lesbian, transgender, queer, right? But that doesn't really contain all that a Two-Spirit is, because a Two-Spirit, while yes, we tend to walk a different path in terms of gender and or sexuality, that's not the beginning and end of what it means to be a Two-Spirit. Two-Spirits traditionally, and to this day, fulfill certain roles within community. We are the artists, we are the teachers, we tend to work with the youth, and we tend to be involved in ceremony. And so, I was involved in some of those activities while I was out of town. And I got to spend a lot of time with Two-Spirit elders, which was really nice. I am myself now a Two-Spirit elder, but I got to spend time with people who are older than me. And I was reminded, that this is what they're trying to take away, right? They're targeting communities like that, right? They don't want Native people to continue to flourish. They don't want Two-Spirits or queers or gays, right, or trans people to flourish. They're attacking all of these communities. They don't, in the name of anti-DEI, they don't want there to even be the possibility of events that are labeled Two-Spirit, right? Because they'll say that's DEI. They're trying to eliminate, right? Native stuff, Black stuff, Latinx stuff, gay stuff, trans stuff, women's stuff. And so when we take out time from the resistance to go and be in our communities, it's really good, because they're telling us we're not allowed to exist. They're saying we want to eliminate you. And so by going out and being loud and proud and publicly celebrating our communities, whatever community that is, that's a form of resistance. That's also soul nourishing, right? And so it just got me thinking about how we all need to be doing that. We all need to be spending time in our communities, especially if you belong to a community that's targeted right now. Like we need to spend time celebrating that. Now, of course, the participant numbers for a number of the events I went to in San Francisco this weekend were down from last year because there were some people who were afraid to attend. They were afraid there was going to be a frozen water raid at our powwow or at the drag show or at the elder lunch or at the hand drum contest, right? There was fears that we might be attacked and invaded just for coming together for a cultural event, because that's what's happening, right? In lots of places. I know that they did that here. Was it here? Um, when it came to like Day of the Dead events, there were people who were afraid to go here in LA because frozen water was going to cultural events to kidnap people, right? So people are afraid to celebrate. But if you can, right? If there's a safe way for you to do so, it's good to do that now. It's good to spend time in community, and just kind of reassert your right to exist. We have a right to exist. So I just wanted to say a little bit about that. We all need to kind of give ourselves a little break and a little grace about the fact that we don't really know how to do this. And we're figuring out as we go along. Someone has a question about two spirits. I wonder roughly what percentage of two spirit people are medicine people, and conversely, what percentage of medicine people might be two spirit. I don't know. I can say that within the two spirit community that I'm familiar with, there are a whole lot of artists. That's one of the traditional two spirit roles, is to be an artist or an artisan, and there are a lot of artists in the community that I know of. And then there's, I think, a fairly large percentage of people who are involved in ceremony in some way. What they may not be medicine people, but they're involved in ceremony to some extent. And that's because people understand that that's a traditional part of who we are. There's also a lot of us in public service. A lot of us are teachers. A lot of us are in social work. A lot of us are doing like public service work. So there is a lot. I mean, it's really interesting because not everybody who grew up two spirit knew about two spirits, right? Like it's like some people, like I remember I found out about it when I was like in my 30s, and I was introduced to the whole like cultural category because it was a reclamation project where people had to kind of remind people, because colonization taught us that there's only two genders and homosexuality is a sin, right? Christian colonization attempted to really dramatically change our cultures. So there had to be this project where people had to reclaim, and it spread across tribes, where first it was in the cities, urban Indians, then it spread to the tribes. And people started to actually talk to the old people, and they said, well, actually, yeah, we did used to have these third and fourth gendered people. And yeah, they used to have these particular roles. Like in some tribes, they were in charge of naming babies, or in other tribes, they were in charge of teaching children certain things, right? And there had to be this kind of re-education, which happens anytime you belong to a colonized group. There has to be a period of re-education about what was stolen or suppressed. Oh, purple. Yeah, I have a purple light on. Is it a purple light? I have a light that has like a violet tint. So if you're seeing purple, that's the light. Yeah, it's in my house. It's not actually my aura. Although sometimes when I don't have a light on, people see colors as well. Oh, Starduster said, I thought I was distanced from the circus and the files, but this morning it hit me full blast when I listened to a song by Jazz called Victoria's Secret. Yeah, I think I heard about that. So I think I did hear that song. Um, it seems to refer to a lot of things in the files, doesn't it? And then I've heard that there were other celebrities who tried to talk about it, who I guess were victimized. Um, yeah, this is true. Manwich 60. The divine feminine is being birthed, and it's a long labor, but will usher in a new way in this patriarchal world, and we will be better off in all ways. Yes, that's what my guide said too quite a while ago. Is that we are in the middle of the rise of the divine feminine. And so that's why, it had to be women that brought down the global structure, right? So these women, these survivors, they have been speaking out for years. Virginia was one of the first, but lots of other women have come forward and a few men. And, it had to be this way because this is how the patriarchy falls, right? Men were never going to destroy the patriarchy on their own. That was never going to happen because it benefits them too much. And that's just the nature of privilege and oppression, right? It's very hard for us to attack systems that benefit us. Patty Falkenstein, thank you for your gift. I appreciate it. And so it was always going to be the women. And we're seeing that in the movement too. We're seeing in Minnesota. We're seeing in LA. We're seeing it in persistence movements. We're seeing it in Congress, right? We're seeing a lot of women playing leadership roles right now. We're also seeing the 4B movement, right? We're seeing a lot of women who are saying they're not interested in marriage anymore. We've seen a huge spike in divorce. We've seen just a lot of outspoken women talking about what's wrong with the current societal structure and how it harms women. Okay, this is the rumor I heard that I was talking about earlier, that Light Sculpted has a little bit more to weigh in on. That government has a hacking group, and so they supposedly have hacked in and gotten the files. Now, here's the thing. This is a rumor, right? It's not verified yet. But what do we know? Whenever you hear a rumor, you have to compare it to what you do know. Like, what are the facts? What are the information you do have? How can logic help you, right? You use logic, we use intuition, we use facts. You got to use it all. I have been thinking for the longest time, there are so many powerful hackers out there in the world. I find it hard to believe that nobody has hacked, right? These files. There's no way. There are some really sophisticated intelligence programs in the Izzy land, in the land of vodka, in lots of other places. What is it, MI6, whatever. There's a lot of intelligence organizations out there who know how to do these things. There are also just individual, hackers who know how to do these kind of things. So it's just super unlikely that there aren't people out there who have obtained the information, right? So just like logically, it makes sense. But like I said, just look and see what happens with Iran. Now, a lot of people have been saying for quite some time that many countries in Europe have some. But here's the thing. We don't really have to focus so much on whether or not other places have what we have, because what's going on is that other places are running their own investigations. And so now, just in the last 2 weeks, so many dozens of new investigations have been started. And so that's going to create whole other sets of files, right? Because that's what our files are. They are documents related to criminal investigations, right? And FBI investigations and DOJ investigations and civil suits, right? That's what the documents are. They're evidence associated with various investigations. So, what's happening now with people around the world starting their own investigations is that they're also going to get access to information related to those investigations. But like my guides have been saying for the longest, it's coming out. It's coming out. It's all coming out. Maybe not at the speed we like, but it's all coming out. And so if you just look at the last, couple months and you compare it to the previous year, right? Look how much is happening now. Look how much good news is happening. Remember back in the day, a few months ago, when it was nothing but bad news every day? It was just like every day more bad news, right? But now look at it. There's like something good happening every day. A new investigation, a new resignation, a new search served on a supervillain, a new arrest. Something like that is happening every day. This thing is a snowball going downhill. It's gaining momentum and it's picking up more and more evidence. More and more people are getting bowled over by the snowball, right? More and more people are going to face the consequences. Okay, I think there's a gift I have to acknowledge. Okay, I think I said thank you to Patty already, but there's one more gift. So thank you everyone who's sending gifts. And thank you to my new member, Sean O'Malley. Thank you for becoming a member. I wanted to say something about that. I do these behind the scenes. Thank you to Angel Torres for the $20 gift. You're amazing. Thank you so much for all that you do. I appreciate that. I do these behind the scenes videos for my YouTube members and my Patreon members. And I just talk about, what I'm thinking about and what goes into my video production. And sometimes I speak a little bit more openly about certain things. And so I did a post last week where I talked, what did I talk about? Racism, I think. And I lost 2 Patreon members. And I'm laughing because, I don't do this work for money. I do this because my guides asked me to be of service to humanity. And sometimes, I'm going to have to speak about some uncomfortable truths that people aren't ready to hear. And, that's going to happen. It's disappointing to me, I have to say. It's disappointing that some people are not ready to deal with certain things. And I think racism is one of those things in the United States that a lot of people just don't want to deal with, because it requires self-examination. It requires admission, all right, of complicity it requires admitting that you might benefit from certain systems, right? It's difficult. So I am going to talk more about that in the future, because when I have a reaction like that, it lets me know, oh, this is an important issue. This is an important issue. And the way I speak, those of you who've been following me know, is I try to be very careful. I try to be very gentle, right? I try to be very gentle. I try to educate people, but I try to also be very, very gentle, because I know we're all going through it right now, right? We're struggling. We're all struggling through the apocalypse, and we don't have a lot of bandwidth for a lot of things. But I will continue to talk about that. I will continue more and more to talk about the importance of us dealing with racism and of how it's really central to the circus. Very, very central to the rise of the circus is white supremacy and racism. And so until we deal with that, we will not be able to circus proof our country, right? Because there could be another one in the future if we don't deal with it, right? So I just wanted to say something about that. Okay, I'm supposed to always stop and make little announcements. So let me see if I can remember to do that. I have 2 books for sale. I started putting them in my videos. So, because someone here recommended I do that, and they should be in my bio. But I have 2 books. One is called The Ethical Psychic, and the other one is called Sovereign Wisdom. I actually have other books, but those are the 2 most recent. And so, if you're someone who has read one of my books, I would love it if you would review it either on Goodreads or wherever you bought it. Like if you bought it from Barnes and Noble, you can review it there. If you bought it on Amazon, you can review it there. But Goodreads, you can review it on Goodreads no matter where you bought it. Because the more reviews I have, the more people will hear about the books, and then the more people will read them. And I do really want people to read them. I don't make a whole lot of money off of them because they go through traditional publishers, and with traditional publishing, most of the money goes to the publisher, and the author gets like, I don't know, 10%. No, I don't even get 10%. I think I get 10% on some of them, and some of them I get like 5%. So it's not like a big income, but I wrote those books because I'm passionate about those subjects. And so I really want people to read them. And they have been really well received so far. I have gotten very good reviews, but I would like more. I would like more reviews. Ethical Psychic, I've gotten more reviews. That one's been out longer. But Sovereign Wisdom just came out last year, and it's an expensive book because it's an academic publisher. I have no control over the price, unfortunately. So fewer people are reading it. But even though it's coming out of an academic publisher, I didn't write it for academics. It's written in such a way that people who are not academics can read it. I really wrote it for, for academics and native philosophy, but also for organizations who want to learn more about native culture and philosophical ideas within native culture. So Sovereign Wisdom is about Native American philosophy. Oh yeah, Rossi's always doing this for me. Hit like, subscribe. Oh yeah, comment. This is one thing I noticed. So I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I watch them, and you know how they are, they kind of auto load the next video. And so a lot of times if I'm not quick or I don't remember, I might not like the video, even though I liked it, because I'm just watching it, right? And then the next one comes on. So, so I thought, I got to remind people, you got to stop the video. If you're watching this as a replay, stop the video and hit like, because the like button apparently affects whether or not like it gets pushed out for other people to see. So thought I'd stop and say that if you can stop and hit like, that would be great. Okay, thanks for this feedback from Orias. Yes, you are very kind and gentle and loving, beautifully so. No need to shy away from such important topics as that. Perhaps seeds were planted for later sprouting when soil is ready. I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. So I did discuss this earlier, Baraka. You might have missed it. We have 517 in the chat right now. Woohoo. I believe that Andrew was arrested not for SMEX crimes, but for sharing sensitive UK info with EPI, like classified stuff. Yeah, I talked about that. I think you missed it. Yeah, so he was arrested for that, right? He wasn't arrested for the essay. And that's what's happening with a lot of these investigations, is that they're starting off with whatever they can get, right? So if there's evidence in the files, something in the files is like, oh yeah, he actually said in an email, I'm going to help you out with this state secret in exchange for, right? They got evidence for that crime. So that's why they're arresting him for that crime. If they don't have evidence for the SA crime, then they have to do more investigating. And so I do think that some of these arrests will lead to investigations that are actually directly related to the SA. But I'm not surprised that they're starting with other crimes, just because that's often how criminal investigations work. They get you for whatever they can get you while they investigate the bigger stuff, right? So, but it's a really, really big deal that that he was arrested, you know. Oh, someone put my link in here. If you want to buy me a coffee, you can use that QR code or go to this URL. And make a Karen. Publishers are ripping you up. They are. That's kind of how they're set up. Is they don't really. They make all the money. Mm. Ooh. Oh, I didn't hear about this. Passing data. This is really exciting. All African states just voted on reparations and payback from nations that took so much. Also, laws are being written about colonialism. You know, I did hear about the Sahel collab. There's this group of countries in West Africa that are coming together and asserting their economic sovereignty and kicking out the colonists who have been stealing all their resources. This is a really important development because we are going to see that happen soon too, is that, you know, African countries are going to, you know, rise up and stop being controlled by the West. The only reason that Europe is rich is because they've been looting the continent of Africa for centuries, as well as their previous colonization schemes in other countries where they've depleted, you know, taken resources from other countries. Warren, what up, y'all? I'm late to the party, but I love these broadcasts done entirely in code words. Hey, I got to do what I got to do. I don't know if you guys are aware of how many creators are getting their accounts taken down. Not on this platform, but on other platforms. But I'm not taking any chances because people don't know this, you know, but I spent the first year that I was doing this work every day under attack. And I had to navigate that. And that's how I figured out to start telling stories and using character names, code words, because somebody decided really early on that I was dangerous. And like when I was first starting out as part of the Dreaming Women and the 4 a.m. Club in November of 2024, there were a few of us who were equally well known, but I was attacked and the others were not. And, you know, I'm not sure, you know, why. I know that I was the only brown skinned person among us. The others were all white psychics. And so maybe that was a part of it, because it does seem like that's a thing on that platform, that you don't see a lot of people that look like me doing this work because their work gets heavily suppressed. But also I thought maybe my work was just deemed more dangerous because I was telling more truths. I don't know. It's anyone's guess. But I had to figure it out. Yeah, Lemon, right? How many journalists were critical of the circus? Who got arrested? 4 African Americans. 4. No one else. Just 4 African Americans. At all white protests in Minneapolis. 99% palm-colored people. Who did they arrest? 4 African Americans. Yeah. So this is the reality that we're living in. This is a good question. I want to answer a few questions. I have to I got to sign off at 5:30 today because I'm going to another Whistle Mania. So this is one of the things I do with Indivisible, where we go make whistle packs. Let me see if I have one right here. Yeah, we make these little whistle packs. So see if you can find one near you. You create these little packages with information about knowing your rights, immigrant rights, and then information about rapid response. And then the whistle, you use it to alert people that frozen water is on your block. And so we're passing these out all over the city. And I think we're trying to pass out like 10,000 or something. So we get together to make the packets, and then we get together to distribute them. So I'm doing one of those tonight. But here's a question. Will the Red Hats ever see all? This person, Vicky, said all. You got high hopes, Vicky. Will all the Red Hats ever see the truth? And why do I want this? Vicky's a self-reflective person. They're like, they have this question, but they also have a question about this question. I like that. As a philosopher, I like that. That's a meta, right? That's a meta question. That's my field. In philosophy, I'm a meta philosopher. I philosophize about philosophy, right? So will they all see the truth? No, not all of them will. And you may recall that my guides gave me this kind of breakdown a while ago. This was maybe a few weeks ago. And they were talking about what's shifting and in terms of people's waking up in consciousness. And they said that right now we're at this point where about half of the country, we're talking about the US, half of the country is part of the persistence, either in terms of their thinking process or in terms of their actual actions, right? They're all of one mind that the circus has to go, right? That's about half. And then they said about a fourth are what they call apathetics, people who just are not involved, are apolitical, think they can just sit this out. And then they said there's this 1/4 of circus supporters, and some of them are circus supporters because they're just really diehard racists. Some of them are just really diehard white supremacists, and they're not going to change because that's just like a core part of their identity. And then there are others who have other like really strong beliefs that attract them to the circus, like the misogynists, the people who just really don't like women and are just super, super invested in having absolute control over women, right? And so there are a couple of categories of people like that who are, they're not going to ever change. And some of them might be your relatives. You might be disappointed to know. And then there are some people who are just mentally, right, not really capable of evolution, not really capable. They don't deal in facts. They don't deal in logic. And so you can't persuade them. See, that's the thing. Sometimes we want to persuade people that they're wrong, but that assumes that they are capable of rational discourse. And there are some people who they just are not capable of that. So those people will not change. But if you look at where we're at right now and where we were a year ago, you can see that there were a lot of Red Hats who have either joined the apathetic camp, which may not seem like progress, but it is, or they have joined the persistence. If not in deed, in thought, they have become anti-circus. There has been a lot of people who have shifted. And so it's never going to be all of them because every society has their lowest denominator of people. We all have a category of people that are very low vibration, who are really dealing with like hatred and anger and, and then of course you have people with actual mental, the sociopaths, the narcissists, right? So we're always going to have that kind of small group. I think the challenge, I think Vicky's question probably really may have to do with people that he or she knows who are Red Hats. Because that's the hard part, right? Is having someone who is in your family or is a neighbor or a coworker who prior to the circus coming to town, you thought they were an okay person, right? Oh, they're a nice person, or they're a decent person, or, you may have had that impression about them. And now that they're full on supporting flashyism, you've had to reevaluate, right, that assessment, because you can't actually be a Nazi and be a good person, right? You can't be both. And, you know, I think a challenge that we've had as a country for centuries is that we have continued to believe, certain of us have continued to believe, that a person can be a good person and also engage in immoral acts against groups of people, right? And that's because it kind of has to do with how we've been raised. Like, we've been raised in a country where racism, for example, is the air we breathe. It's very much a part of our history, our culture, our textbooks, our media. It's very much who we are. And because we've kind of been raised in it, we can kind of separate out the moral failings of a racist from our assessment of that person as a morally good person. And I have always found that really problematic as a philosopher who studies ethics and who used to teach ethics. Because it's like, well, how can that person be a good person when they're harming a whole group of people? Right? How could that person be a good person? And the same is true for a misogynist, right? Or sexist, or someone who their entire life has been harming women. Is that a good person? How is it that we exempt certain behaviors, right? Like, you're supposed to be kind, you're supposed to be honest, you're supposed to have certain traits to be a good person. But then we make exceptions. We say, okay, but it's okay if you're not kind and good and generous to those people, right? We're still going to call you a good person. So we're kind of dealing with that now as a country, right? We have all these people who are openly supporting a flashy regime, right? And if they could maybe try to say they didn't know a year or two ago, they clearly can't say that now, right? Cat's out of the bag. They've been very clear about who they are and who they hate. And so people are losing their lives, right? Families are being gravely harmed. People are losing their jobs. I mean, lots of harm is happening as a direct result of this circus. And so the people that continue to support it today are people who are supporting the committing of grave acts of harm against others, which means they're not good people, right? And so, this is really challenging for a lot of us because we have friends, coworkers, family members, and we've had to kind of reflect on that. Like, oh, I guess that person, isn't a good person that I thought was a good person. And that's really hard, right? It's really hard. And so there's a part of us that that wants them to evolve because we want them to be good people, right? We want to be right, that we thought they were a good person. We want to be right. We want them to be just making a temporary error or misinformed or, right, glitching. A good person glitching is what we want to believe about these people. And so, Vicky, when you ask, or is it Vichy? I'm not sure. When you ask, why do I want this? That's my guess. That's my guess. I don't know if I'm right about you, but I think that's why a lot of us want that. We want our family members and our friends and our neighbors to be good people, right? It's hard. It's very hard. Some people are going to evolve, right? Some people, because of this extreme nature of this situation, some people are going to really do the inner work and the introspection, and they're going to start to examine their own internalized forms of hate, their hatred towards different groups, their prejudice, their bias, right? They're going to start to interrogate that, and they're going to realize that they were they were manipulated through their hate, right? Because they were so attached to hating certain groups or to being superior to certain groups, whether it's men wanting women to stay in their place so that they could feel superior, or heterosexuals wanting to oppress queer people so they could feel superior about their lives, right? Because of that, those people were then manipulated into joining the circus, right? Some people are going to have revelations about that, and they're going to evolve, and they're going to become more loving. And I think we're seeing that. I do feel like we're seeing that every day. Like we're seeing people evolve. We're seeing people become more loving. I feel like I'm seeing it all the time, that people are coming together. I'm seeing this at dance parties, right? That people are out there who maybe they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they've never been to a dance party in their life, and now they're out there. There are people out there who used to be redheads. I've talked to them. So this evolution is happening, and people are becoming kinder, and people are engaging in introspection. And so I do have a lot of hope about the red hat neighbors, friends, and family. Dr. Domenico, thank you for everything you do, Dr. Vess. Your chats have helped me connect with my guides. I am now following their instructions to harness and learn the potential of my gifts and learn Spanish. Oh, that's awesome. That's such great news. Thank you for the gift. Thank you to It's Just Jamie for the super sticker. Somebody said it's classic I can change him vibes. Yeah, a lot of us are waking up to that, right? A lot of us are waking up to the fact that we can't change other people, that we need to maybe stop trying to save so many people. That's another kind of evolution that's happening. And I can speak from experience. I used to be so codependent. I was always trying to save everybody. I guess there's something going on in the chat. Oh, I hope my mods are here. Yeah, so here's a person that, we don't agree. Laura Mather, you said, thank you for spending time on this. I have some very dear friends who I know are good people, but they are big MAGA, and I'm having a hard time understanding how they cannot see the evil. See, so like you and I, right, we have different perspectives, because I don't think it's possible to be a Nazi and to be a good person. It's just not. Those two things can't coexist. And I'm sure that was the case during World War II in Germany. There were people who thought they were good people, and yet they were supporting what they were supporting, right? And so and that's just their lesson to learn, right? I mean, when we look at things from a spiritual perspective, we understand that we all have our own journey, right? We all have our own life purpose journey. And we came here to learn things and to teach things and to be on whatever path we came to be on. And for those people who came to this planet and who thought they were good people because they're nice to people that look like them or that are loved like them, but it turns out they have this hatred for all of these other groups, and they're okay with those people being harmed. They may have come here to learn love, right? Maybe that's their life purpose, was they came here to learn love, and this is how they're learning it, right? By attaching themselves to a movement of hate and then slowly unraveling themselves from the hate. And Shy Nailless gives another good example. This is how our country could enslave a group of people for centuries, right? My ancestors were enslaved for centuries and wipe out so many Native Americans. My ancestors also were removed from their land, subjected to genocidal campaigns for centuries. But these people who did this, they still think they're good people, right? You cannot be a slave owner and be a good person, right? This is something that we as a country need to understand, that we don't understand. Because, like I said earlier, we have been taught that this is normal, right? Our textbooks have taught us that, oh, yeah, this is just slavery happens. It just happens. And so how do we unlearn that as a country? This is a job for the whole country, right? This is not an individual. This is individual work. It's also collective work. Like, as a country, we need to figure that out, how there were so many ancestors in this country who committed these grave crimes against humanity, right? So if you're committing a crime against humanity, can you claim to be a good person? I say no. That's my opinion. You may not agree with me. I say no. Okay. Enslaving someone, enslaving a whole group of people, it's a crime against humanity. Committing genocide against a whole group of people, it's a crime against humanity. And the UN is now saying this, right? The UN is now saying this about the Epiphiles, that it's a crime against humanity. Oh, yeah, I recommend this book too, Ms. Ari. Thanks for mentioning this. The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. I read this when I was very young, I think in college, and it's very eye-opening. It's sad, but it really gives you a better understanding of the history of this country. It's a really good book. It's pretty old. There are newer ones. Like, there's an Indigenous history of the United States now. There's an anti-racist history of the United States. There's a lot of books that were that followed in his footsteps, where they followed his example, and they wrote books like it. I actually got to meet Howard Zinn. I was a big fan of his when I was in college. He was a historian. Now I have to go catch my bus because I'm going to this Whistle Mania, so I can help make whistle packets. But I just want to thank everybody for coming and for engaging in this conversation. It's not easy. It's not easy to have these conversations. It's not easy to talk about the state of the world. It's not easy to talk about our country. It's not easy. Nothing that we are going through right now is easy. So give yourself some grace. Take care of yourself, meditate, go outside in nature, play some relaxing music, do things that are joyful, spend time in community, journal. These are all things that I find helpful. I like to play really relaxing music throughout the day. I find that really, helps regulate my nervous system, to listen to meditation music. That's just one of my hacks. So until we meet again, I tend to go live every Thursday, either at 4 or 5. I alternate it so I can get the East Coast people, accommodate different time zones. And so I'll catch you in the next live. And thank you all for coming, for commenting, for sharing, for having these important conversations, for creating community. I love the community that we have created here in these lives and in the comment sections of my videos. It's been 15, 16 months now that I've been posting, between 3 and 7 times a week. And so thank you. I meant to meditate today and I totally forgot, because there's just so much to talk about, right? So next time we'll have to meditate. So be well, you all, and I'll see you again.